Well, good morning, everybody out there. I hope you guys can all hear me well. Great morning to you all. We've got Alan and I back for another week. We're calling our video series, I'm going to start renaming them to the Market Top Signals Show. So sorry for the clickbaity title, but it's a play on the fact that every time we go live, it seems like we signal the market top. It's almost always a sell-off after we go live. So just be ready and be warned. But thank you all for being here with us. As usual, our usual disclaimer that neither Alan or I are licensed financial advisors. So please, this is our opinion about what we're seeing in the markets. This is not financial advice. And if you were to take trades blindly based on anything that you hear us talking about today, you're going to end up losing all of your money and living in a van by the river. Now, with that said, we've got some things to talk about today. In the theme of the market top signals, I do actually have some like simple signals that I wanted to share with people that are not as active traders. But we'll get to those as we can. Alan had some thoughts. We talked a little bit before this live stream. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. And Alan, how's it going? You know, say good morning here.
Yeah, good, and good evening from Dalian to everybody. Chilly northeastern China this time of the year. But yeah, it's been entertaining being out and about the last few days in the gale force northerly winds, but it keeps you awake. But no, I mean, it's still lovely, lots of sunshine, seaside, so can't complain. Great food. Got rid of the virus again, so we're all good. And
wow,
yeah,
for you guys, sort of, we did not. Yeah, here in Texas, it's really, really cold. It's 52 this morning. It is. We got to get out our big winter coats here.
Absolutely. So we've touched negative Celsius, and I'm sure we're just getting going in the winter here. It's obviously people talk about climate change, but Dalian, certainly the years I've been coming, didn't get particularly snowy, but it's been getting worse the last few years, and so it'll be an interesting winter, I think. Looking forward, in the last few weeks, my stay has been extended here, which is great, and I'm very happy here, and looking forward to being here for Chinese New Year next year, which is always a amazing event, and it's been a little while since I was here for that, so looking forward to that.
Well, yeah, give us some pictures on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll do what we can to share a bit more. Obviously, we've been very quiet the last few weeks because we've had the restrictions here, just getting rid of the virus. So it's been, you've been on lockdown. Yeah, we've been, yeah. I mean, it's nice. There's been no real lockdown. It's more, they just don't want you traveling too far. So we've just been in and around the city, going backwards and forwards, and not doing too much. So it's not particularly to keep posting the same pictures every day for walking down the same road. But I've shared a little bit. It's now it's been good. I mean, everything. The shopping malls are still open, restaurants open. It's not, it's no lockdown. There's only been the one, and even in here in Dalian, there's never really been any hard lockdown of the whole city. It's that's a lot of scaremongering. It's just been travel outside the city that gets restricted when there's a problem, and then it gets opened back up again. So we're all good. So still, been out today, restaurants and enjoying the day, so it's been good. So yeah, I mean, we talked last time quite a bit about models and timings. So if we pick that up again, I think today, I think I've zoomed in a little bit on what I like, and we can cascade that into your indicators, because I think that's where perhaps my more macro look at things zoomed out as a bit more of an investor rather than, I tweet about the 8-hour chart sometimes, but that's just to try and tweet something interesting. Sometimes, I'm not actively really trading on those timescales at the moment at all. I'm just looking if there's any sort of major trend change now. I'm positioned and like where I am. So it's then going to be a case of looking at what happens next now. What do we do depending on which scenario plays out, and when do we start taking some of the hodl bags off, perhaps being cautious, these kind of things. So, right. But that's, my views. Let me see if we can get the share to
Yeah, you should have the
Yourself?
ability to share. Just for everybody who's just joining, by the way, I renamed it. I realized I named the title of the video "Market Top Signal," and that was a little bit more clickbaity than I wanted. Alan, we're naming our show. It's because every time Alan and I go to get live together, it seems to like the market wants to take tank like right after. I don't know if it's a Thursday thing or what. The market just loves to tank on Thursdays into Friday. But yeah, it's a play on the fact that every time we go live, the market tanks. And so
Yeah. The first time we went live was just before 56% capitulation crash on Bitcoin. So we never went live again for a while after that. It's like have to sort of recover.
Yeah, so we've got I do have on this theme, I do have some market top, like I'll discuss why I don't think we're at the top right now, but we have to be prepared for anything. But Alan, if you've got, we're gonna start with Alan's share.
So
We had Heath's model, I think, is what we'll share your charts, and then Heath's model is one that we talked about earlier. But
yeah, so have a look at the charts. Got the usual update on Ethereum, what's been going on. What I see is the signal in the noise, because obviously huge ecosystem with a lot happening. So yeah, so I mean, Bitcoin, we've been a couple of weeks and we talked about this. I've got this sort of green area here of support, looking to hold this area, perhaps with this weekly close order block below. And that's exactly where we still are. We're still consolidating. We're still establishing this as support, which I think is necessary for the leg up out of here. And we're just still in that area. We've had this nice wick, which retreated back up in there for the weekly close, as it likes to do. And obviously we've pushed down a little bit again and touched almost exactly the weekly support again. It's noteworthy. I've got a different chart where I'm looking at some more detailed levels, but this rejection here on this last candle was the monthly resistance it pushed back up into and then reject off it after a monthly close, which again is pretty typical. It's come down and held the weekly at the moment. So this is just sideways, really. There's nothing happening here. As I said, I tweeted a few things that looked interesting on the short term, and then as ever, if you try to chase momentum, you'd have got chopped up. It's the market's doing its thing. We're getting these candles with these wicks on both ends, just stopping people out, and it's just chop. It's not ideal to be trading in there unless you're super experienced trader used to handling those sorts of movements. We're also seeing this pump and fade pattern quite a bit, where it goes up 3-4%. People will get excited and then it fades back. And that's not a great market to trade short term. So for me, I'm positioned. I'm not trading actively at the moment and just letting things play out. I personally do not have a specific time frame for the top of this market. I'm not thinking we're going to top at any particular time. I'm just watching what is happening. And obviously everyone who's followed my conversations here and on Twitter is aware I'm particularly bullish with Ethereum, more so than I am with Bitcoin. Even though I'm bullish Bitcoin, I think ETH outperforms. And certainly over the past couple of weeks, we've seen perhaps the next leg of relative performance on Ethereum, which is encouraging for where I'm positioned off the fact I think ETH will outperform significantly. Still,
Yeah. I just want to share something. So I'm seriously considering. Now I'm not gonna make this change on a whim, but I'm seriously considering in the bear market. And as we, here's the thing: is that we may not have our traditional bear market because we may not have a traditional blow off top, but we're going to have a overheated market and then a suppressed market and capitulation. Whether it's a blow off top into a severe capitulation like we're used to, or it's more of a rolling top into a more typical looking capitulation. The markets are the markets, and that's what happens in markets. After the next round of capitulation, assuming it happens, around the timing of ETH 2.0, I'm probably going to move my base trading account from Bitcoin to Ethereum. Now that I'll still have my HODL bags in both. I've always had my HODL bags in both, but for the very reasons Alan's talking about, plus Ethereum is fully deflationary and has higher utility. but it's also now liquid enough and large enough exchanges, you can use it as your kind of your base pair, that I'm seriously considering that for next year and beyond. Now, I won't do it just yet because as a base pair for trading, it's still not quite where Bitcoin is, but it's getting there rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some stats. Certainly, Coinbase volume has been showing ETH volume above Bitcoin volume quite consistently, which is remarkable compared to where it was not so long ago. So yeah, I mean, it's showing that. I've also been seeing a little bit of correlation with the movements in the market overall and the ETH chart more than I have been with this Bitcoin chart, which is perhaps telling a story as well about whether there's more activity there or something at the moment. We're certainly seeing accumulation of whales accumulating stuff. That data is fairly clear on Bitcoin, so we're still seeing accumulation. But whether this is moving the market as much as it once was, we can see dominance is 40%. It's not really recovering at the moment. It's different story. Obviously, ETH's now above 20%, which we talked about before. So just have obviously a little bit of a look at the short term, because I know people will be interested in sort this mess out of this short term view here. I know you've sort of also managed to angle in what looks like a descending wedge into perhaps to break out of here. But just looking at this simply, obviously we had a price compression here, and then we've had a push up and a rejection off the monthly there just after a monthly close, and we're just back chopping around here, still looking like it's compressing up to break out, but we could come down. There's no guarantee this thing is going to break out to the upside.
When you're
probably
done,
in a bull market. And then we've got a weekly close, which I noticed is similar to where you've got a potential base on your triangle, your wedge. 517. I wouldn't be surprised if we wick down here, but we'll see. If we get the volume come in, if we break out of here, then obviously we can clear all these resistances pretty quickly. But it's been really sort of timid at times. It's gone up a little bit and then it's slammed back down, and we're just not. I said on Twitter, no momentum.
It's just consolidating here. It's so the point I'll make here, and later I'll share some Glassnode charts. We'll look at one of our key metrics to figure out if we're kind of putting in a lower high and potentially rolling over, versus if we're looking for a leg up, just as a kind of a confirmation. We'll look at price first and foremost, but I've got the balance on exchanges, and we're watching. We had a small increase in balance on exchanges in the last 24, 48 hours. We've had another little drawdown here, so we're going to keep watching that closely. But yeah, to your point, here's the other thing about the models that we're going to talk more about as we go along. If it wasn't for models that people were predicting $300,000 Bitcoin this month, people wouldn't be as nearly as concerned as they are. That, in my opinion, that like combination of trying to pick a price and a date creates a lot of unnecessary anxiety. If you look at it purely, take all the parabolic top theory stuff away and just look at it purely on a technical basis, zoom out long term. All we've done is we made a significant high, we had a correction, accumulation, and then now we're recovering, and we've taken out the prior highs, and we are consolidating, building a base of support in that range. And that's all we're doing, is we're establishing support where we had previously established resistance. This is extremely normal, healthy activity for a very strong asset that's moving up. It's all the $300,000, $500,000 in December, or stock to flows. We have the $98,000 floor model by the end of November. That's causing everybody this anxiety, because people position themselves and were expecting those numbers, and that expectation is what's causing all this anxiety. Without that expectation, there's nothing really to be anxious about. It looks just fine. And so that's just another thought.
It's a healthy market. This is, for me, is more like something like the Tesla chart. Are we stressing over Tesla being a certain price at the end of January or something? No. What we can see is a company that's growing rapidly. It looks like it could get an 80% year on year or something come in. Numbers look amazing. What's it going to do? It's building, we can look at it later, is building another triangle and there's only one way that's likely to go, unless the market capitulates. So, and the timeline for me is long term, and I'm not stressed. I'm not thinking, oh, Tesla's not got to $1,500 in December, let's panic and sell everything. That would sound ridiculous, but that's almost where we've got to in crypto, because I've said this, and I had a bit of ridicule come back for it, but it's just, you're trying to build a statistical model of 2 or 3 data points, which also I've done some statistical modeling. You couldn't, like, for example, program an AI of 2 samples. That would make no sense at all. So, so whilst the halving is fixed and the number of blocks and everything is fixed, what happens now in between? Well, to say it's going to follow the previous 1 or 2 or 3, to me, doesn't make sense. And as I said last time, I'm not dismissing anyone's model, because they're all almost as valid as each other in their own way, because they're pretty well reasoned, a lot of them. But it looks to me like a lot of them are going to be wrong. We certainly look like we're lengthening as a cycle. Well, we already have lengthened in terms of numbers of days, and we've got the block lengthening cycle model from Michael, as we've looked at. And I just don't have the stress of, and don't want the stress of thinking, well, we've got to be somewhere right this minute, because that in any other market I'm trading or following doesn't make sense. We've been looking at the macro things on other markets, and we look at them in crypto. What's happening with the dollar? What's happening with expansion of money supplies? What's going to drive inflation? All of that still stands in the other markets. But I don't think I was thinking, oh, the SPX has to be some number by the end of December. It doesn't. That would seem absurd to do as a prediction. You're looking for a trend change at the moment in equities. If you're like, I've got some longer term pension, things like that invested. When do I start playing, some defense with my positions, not leaving them all exposed? Because, that's what I'm concerned about right now is, I don't, I think they can print dollars for a long time as well. I'm not in that it's all going to crash next week camp at all. There's a lot more dollars can be printed to keep the sort of Ponzi going that is propping all the prices up. So it's not doesn't look like it's an imminent correction. Of course, trying to raise rates and slow things down won't have a great short-term effect on the market. But I'm looking for those trend change signals. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking for the same in crypto. Is there something I can see that says we're broken as a bull market? Because that's really the question to answer. Then this will take care of itself over time, is my feeling. Looking for a black swan or some other calamity. Obviously, we if we flip back to this shorter term chart we were just looking at, we came down here, but this was this COVID story that basically, and then we've recovered off it, and now we're back to where we were. It's like we had a news event, which I tweeted out. We were up here and thinking, God, I should have traded that again. Just perfect trade, easy trade. Big news event, boom, sells off. Straight back up again.
If you guys know Lemmy, he totally called that. So he kept saying it's going to be a swing pattern failure, and he's looking for it. And it's exactly what that was, where you have this quick, you put in a support, and then it looks like it's going to be a swing lower, and then it takes out the other direction after it takes out the stop. It's basically a stop.
And we saw this violent wick down. It was like a 1 minute wick down and pump. So it's but if you were just trading this to support, it was even if you just traded it here to here on a sort of Heath trade, if you like, it was a simple trade. So things like that you can see, but we've just recovered. So we've shrugged that off really. And now we're here. Is there, the media is trying to play that story to death, but they're not really getting anywhere by the look of it. We'll see if we see much more than perhaps some manipulation. It's a nice excuse to stop everybody out at the moment and go from there. So I'll have a quick look at Ethereum whilst we're whizzing through the charts, because it's been an interesting couple of weeks for.
Well, we should stop and pause and say congrats to Alan, by the way. Alan, the ETH BTC chart, when you get to it, you're looking at the USD chart. Before you get there, though, I'm going to go ahead and give you your due props. And, you know, something that we all should pay attention to, Alan seems to have a knack for seeing real adoption, especially when it comes to things that are tech oriented with Tesla and with Ethereum. And you know, but props to you. ETH BTC broke the other direction I was expecting, right? So I'm on the wrong side of that currently in having mostly BTC. But yeah, that was a really good call by you. And you've been consistent in your messaging about that. So I just wanted to give you your due props. And then before you get to your Ethereum charts.
Yeah, I mean, we can only, I think the thing is, even if you're zoomed right out and you're trying to make an investment call, you've got to trust the chart to some degree alongside your thesis, because you need them to line up. There's not really much point if the chart is uber bearish and yet you're insistent that you've got this amazing thing is going to happen. Well, pretty high probability this thing carries on going down. You're catching falling knives and all that stuff. That's not to say you can't find value that way, and value trading is a subject in itself. Not really my thing, that sort of value investing model, but it does work over time for many people, particularly if you're looking for slightly safer, lower returns, these kind of formulas. So yeah, I mean, he's done really well so far. And I mean, it's been this amazing move from when we were talking about it down at 0.02 back in, you know, CTM quirky Telegram sort of days way back when, talking about the big wedge pattern and the sort of, is this thing going to explode? Because it looks pretty crazy, this pattern. And it's followed that through. I mean, I think my regret in terms of my overall position would be not having perhaps taken at least half my hodl bags out of Bitcoin into Ethereum, because that would have been the right play. But that's, you know, hindsight's always the safest trade. It's always the rule. So what have we got with ETH as a structure here? Obviously, this, again, go back, this trend line comes off the last high through the high we made in May. No surprise we rejected off it again. You know, that's a pretty powerful trend line if you're going to draw one. And we looked at, on the last stream, where's it likely to come? Probably needs to come back to this order block on the weekly to get enough momentum to try and break this resistance. This is going to be pretty heavy resistance. There'll be a lot of traders shorting off that again when it gets back there. So far, and obviously it's crypto, so we could dump in the next hour, but I think if we look at this, it's played out perfectly at the moment. I didn't trade this because I want to be positioned. I know these things can rip. I don't know whose predictions are going to be right, but I know some have said they traded this and it's been a lovely trade. So well done to everyone who's you know, taken a pretty simple trade off a big resistance back to a weekly order block. You know, nice trade. The structure here is really healthy. We currently are still above that previous weekly all-time high, establishing it as support. We've now got two nice big weekly wicks there. We've pushed back up here near to this, and obviously we've come off a bit, as you would expect. This is the weekly all-time high close here. We're just under that at the moment. Now, the ratio, obviously we've looked at this in a number of different ways, but probably my favorite look at this is to come right out on the monthly here with the sort of cup and handle type chart pattern. And just, you know, there was a big resistance on the monthly, which we were holding under here, and now we've closed above it. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if we came back to 0.77 and retested it, because that's obviously what we usually see with price action. But taking that out on a monthly looks great. You know, that's what you want to see if you're, you know, bullish Ethereum. You know, a little bit more noise here still on the weekly above, which I've obviously tweeted about. I tend to look at the weekly more, although recently I'm getting more into looking at monthlies as well, because it gives you a nice, almost simpler picture at times. This actually starts looking noisy compared to the monthly chart, even though we're on a weekly chart. But this other view, obviously the big breakout from the wedge that formed from 2018, you know, we've consolidated here, we've pushed up through it, made a new high. Now we've come back a bit. We have a little bit more noise here. We have this overhead resistance here from this swing high that, okay, it was in the way down, but we'd really want to be above that. But this is held up really well. This this line here that I've seen obviously a lot of traders have picked up this line. This was the moment that was probably where you probably were thinking this is coming down. As you know, I was watching it. It came into this support through the cloned line and down, and then it just wicked off it beautifully. And I thought, okay, we look like we're strong at this point.
My reasoning for believing it was gonna break down, I was more convinced it was gonna break down a few months ago, maybe not so much in October anymore. But that was because I was still in the mindset of trying to map what had happened in 2017 to 2021. Yeah. And I've gotten, really far from that mindset since probably August, September. I've quit trying to map, really closely, like, okay, at this point, Bitcoin goes down, alts go up, this, that, and the other. And instead of trying to like map, especially with fractals, I've just looked at general indicators and market trends. And the one thing that I continue to see is that 2021 is a unique animal, completely unique, completely different than 2013 and 2017. There's a lot of similarities, obviously. The halving set off, price appreciation for Bitcoin, which then drove interest into crypto in large. But the dynamics are just very different now. And so, now I have no preconceived idea of which direction Ethereum should go versus Bitcoin at any particular juncture. I'm in the mindset of I'm just going to watch the charts and price action. And like you said, combine that with fundamentals. We know we had EIP 1559. So it's really not surprising that we're seeing Ethereum strong versus Bitcoin, because Ethereum had its own kind of, halving event about 3 months ago, which is just about
2/3 drop as well. It's more than halving. Yeah, I mean, it's a big reduction. We'll look at the chart in a minute, but yeah, it's big reduction. So
it's not surprising that Ethereum is very strong here versus Bitcoin. In my opinion, this was about the time I thought that should happen. But what's caught me off guard personally is I was looking for maybe a little bit stronger price action from Bitcoin before rotating into Ethereum. And we might have the opportunity to rotate into Ethereum was probably in this last high. And it's really hard trying to gauge that exactly. But as you're seeing here, now it's also not the worst.
Yeah, the breakout. That's where I regret. I saw this, and I did actually invest into Ethereum here.
Well,
but it was this when it held. When it held here, that was the place. That was and you could almost do the high entry there. It's like, this thing's out of here.
I was fortunately 20% Ethereum, 20% Cardano right there. And then, when Ethereum made that huge move, I'm also not hurting too bad, because Ethereum made that huge move and I got out and I got back into Bitcoin at 32,000 or so. So I had the opportunity to get back into Ethereum after playing, Bitcoin's rise first. But all in all, I'm pretty much sideways on that whole thing. I versus the US dollar, we've done well, but versus Ethereum versus Bitcoin. But here's the opportunity. You see it happening. This is what markets do. When you break a significant level, the market loves to come back to retest that level, right? To confirm it as support. And if it breaks and doesn't hold support, then that was a false breakout. If it holds support and you get resumption, then that's a good breakout. So, as the next couple of weekly candles that you have here print, there's a good chance that we simply come back to test the top of that wedge, and then we resume off of it. And that is another opportunity, honestly, to rotate some funds into Ethereum. And I will be watching very closely to see if this is a false breakout or a real breakout. If we have confirmation,
we've seen wicks galore in this market with these sorts of breakouts. And I tweeted a couple of times, best not to chase momentum. People get wrecked doing it. You get wicks everywhere. Even on this time frame, we've seen many wicks through this market. It just, what a mess sometimes when people are, oh, I'll stick my 100 leverage in. We're going long. It's all going to break out. Everything's flippening next week, and it's like, no, it's coming back. Don't worry.
Yeah, this is where it takes. I think a lot of people who are joining us in the whole crypto journey over the past year, they're kind of new to trading and they're new to watching markets, and they don't have the same general patience. Like, I think they get this antsy, and I did it too. We all probably did it when we first started trading. You get this antsy feeling that something's big's going to happen any moment now. And you realize it takes a while to unfold. And those moments where you have this really big breakout and run are super fleeting and super rare. And, for the most part, generally you can tag along when you see like clear signs of a big breakout. But you know, if you're not well positioned before that, just find the next one. But you know, but the other thing too is on this chart right here, it's exactly it. This is for me. This wasn't the time for me just to like, you know, panic and flip from Bitcoin to Ethereum just because it broke
you're
out.
into resistance. You don't want to be buying into resistance, do you? I mean, that's not the right plan. You buy into support if you're going to buy, really. You know, pull back into support, buy off the resumption or at the support, and average. If it came back, great. You can get a bit more, but it's it's a lot of psychology, Brandon. It's always the the killer in trading. But it's been this thesis looks good. I mean, we've seen the same ETH dominance. We talked about the obviously I've got a little bit more of a uptrend on this one, but again, we've broken out past 20% and we've made a little bit of a higher high there as well. Obviously tends to follow ETH BTC pretty well. We'll see. I mean, we can look at this as another big, almost cup and handle mirrors ETH BTC. Will we see it go to 30%, as some people think, or up here into the top of this channel? Who knows? That would be a massive price move on Ethereum if it does. So we will see.
That would be quite something else. Yeah, looking at it from the ETH dominance chart, that's a really interesting look too. Yeah, I do like that view because, you know, it gives this view right here gives you can see the support we're putting in at about 19% right there. And then, so you're kind of trying to form support now. You broke through that. So a pullback to 19% concurrent with a pullback to that top of that wedge in the Bitcoin chart, probably a really good place. And I'm as I'm watching this from you, learning from you, I'm thinking I'm going to probably rotate at least maybe 10% or so from Bitcoin over to Ethereum. And if it loses that support, then I'll flip back for a small, a small minimal loss. But then I have the opportunity gain of if it finds support there and resumes, and Ethereum is stronger for the next few months, then I'm well positioned, split between the two of them. So that's something that I'm probably going to look. Not financial advice, but looking at this chart, I'm going to add this to my charts too, the Ethereum dominance, and start watching it more closely because you can see that uptrend. And it's a really good look at that uptrend there, and it's look that looks.
This is also about. I'm also looking if we get that trend change because something breaks. I'm not welded to Ethereum to the point where I don't care what it does. I do care what it does, and I was always watching it thinking, it's easy to flip back to Bitcoin if we get a big change in momentum. Or something else. If I saw something that I like the look of that was genuinely gaining adoption and was looking strong, but I still look down the list and I see a lot of Ethereum projects with loads of fee revenue and good businesses, and then I see what really are just meme projects with a valuation that's got nothing to do with any income or anything. So I would say, as ever, trade those, trade the hype, trade the noise, trade the momentum. Stack your sats and your Gwei. Don't get caught stacking something that can literally capitulate 80-90% on you very, very quickly, because that's get rich quick mentality. That's you might get lucky, you might be able to find some exit liquidity, but those things will kill you. And that unfortunately is the negative side of being involved in trading communities, is you do see those stories, unfortunately, that people have leveraged up and got all hyped up on something, and we've seen the bleed, whichever thing it is against Ethereum. A lot of them, Cardano's done it. I think it's 55-60% it bled down against Ethereum. It's just, so I sold it off the ETH chart when I got out of that trade. I had nothing really much to say about Cardano, but what it was very early, so it was a hype trade, so it worked perfectly. Now I'm not trading actively at the moment, I say, because I'm positioned looking at this longer term view now, thinking this may well play out. If we do get a compressed move at the end of this market, I don't want to be chasing it. I want to be in front of it and kind of happy that that I am. But there will be loads more of those trades before this bull market's done. They're going up. We saw Matic pumping, and they're probably retracing, but we've seen things doing 100% in a day and whatever. If you catch those, then great. I would say don't sell all your Bitcoin for one of those. That's not wise.
I would concur.
Yeah. So obviously a little bit on where we've been macro wise underpinning this, and this sort of monthly look at DXY that we've started having a look at. So we continued up, and now we've just caught, obviously with the new month, we're just consolidating a bit. I've been interested watching this. There was a huge wick and some spiking around yesterday, I think, or the day before, which moved the markets around a bit. I'm not sure anyone's really convinced about this whole tapering thing. That can you really raise rates and stop printing? I'm not sure I buy that. I think a lot of people aren't either. We're starting to see the dollar sort of weaken again. People don't really believe that is possible. The economic data is not great. You know, it's not telling you a story that it's all so bullish that we can now stop propping it up.
Yeah, I think it's possible they can slow QE, but raising rates is not probably something they can do right now. They can probably slow QE, but that's not going to stop. You know, it's still. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out here soon enough. I highly doubt they stop all QE and raise rates.
What's the chart saying, Ryan? If it comes out of this wedge, could be off up here. You have no idea. So it's yeah. I mean, that would obviously mean that probably everybody else's currency is complete trash. As we
You're in a 1 month chart. Okay, I'm gonna go zoom out here a little bit more. Oh yeah, I've got that. Yeah, that's a pretty way. So the top of that. I've got a line up here on my weekly chart at 111 is where we need to get to, but you got a little bit different look there, but okay.
Yeah, I'm just keeping this as long. Are we getting a big trend change? Are we going to get out of this chopping around? Obviously, if we draw these lines here, we've attempted to break down and sort of double bottomed and rebounded off there. And then where are we going?
Got it.
If this comes out of here, this would be, certainly for sterling, I'll be happy to have a lot of crypto at that point, because sterling will be going in the toilet, being flushed away. If the XY is going up here. I mean, it's been wrecked pretty badly as it is. 10-year, I'm not big on all the interactions. Obviously, other people have followed FX a lot longer than me, other than to say that's still pinned under this very, very long term 1995 trend line down. So we've had a little go at it, and obviously this was, I think, tapering, and then they gave up and it capitulated back down, and then we've had all the chaos with virus and all the rest of it here, and we're still consolidating under here, not looking like we're very sure that this yield's going to rise at the moment. I could see this chopping around almost like in a very long-term version of what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. I mean, it's got that look to it. So macro, but again, I don't understand all the nuances really of this, but I can see the logic of raising interest rates, trying to make your currency attractive, but horrible if your economy doesn't support it. So
a risk.
So talking about model then quickly before we get to a little bit of a Ethereum update. So this was Heath's fib that we looked at last time that just said from the mid-cycle low, he's got the same fib level here in the previous cycle peaks. So he's suggesting it may be somewhere around $236,000 for Bitcoin. What I like about just looking at this is don't care when, which I think is what we said earlier, to me makes more sense as a trader. And if we get diminishing return, fine, it may not ever get there, and we probably will be able to gauge that. But I like this more than some of these things that are all worried about the angle of almost the angle of attack here. How quickly is Bitcoin going to get there? Because I don't think anybody knows. And what you do know as a trader, as markets get bigger, is they do tend to take longer to get to places. It's just inherently with more market cap. It's not always, but even those Tesla consolidations are taking longer. and then it pumps, but it takes longer. And each of the, try to call it the forever bigger triangles on that chart, we just keep making bigger and bigger ones and breaking upwards. We're seeing, we're seeing a similar type of perhaps thesis play out. It's been called lengthening cycles or whatever. It's just almost like market maturity. It's going to take longer. If it doesn't and it pumps up there, it still gives me then another target to go with some of the other indicators that we've, talked about that might give us a clue that we're at the top.
I need to tag on to this chart that Heath put out, because I did the same basic thing here, right? I was looking at the same data, and the conclusion I came to is he's got the top level. The very top is the 4618. So if you work with fib extensions, what you know is that pretty much any time you make that 4x over the last impulse to the 4x, 4618 level, you've really overextended for that last move that you've had. It doesn't mean that that's even the top of whatever asset you're looking at for, but it means that it's probably going to consolidate there for a long time. And that's a big move. And 999 times out of 1,000, if price comes back significantly if you do reach that 4618. But the other thing to keep in mind is that between the one level, the one standard deviation, which is a standard double the move, basically a 2x move, after the one standard deviation, there's a 1618, a 2618, a 3618, and a 4618. So the 2618 and the 3618 are also really good levels for us to watch, because again, diminishing returns, if we get to the 2 or the 3618, which I believe was at like 112 and like 100
will be resistance, guaranteed.
Yeah. So what I do on shorter time frames, and it would absolutely apply to this longer time frame look, because you can see the launch angle we have coming out of that July low. Right. So you can anchor probably a trend line from the very COVID capitulation through the, before the launch in late 2020 through that January low, all the way up through there. And the first one of those 618 levels that you hit, whether it be the one standard deviation, which is 73,000 right now, or the 2618, 3618, 4618, whichever one of those you hit, and then you start to curl over and you lose your trend line, and you have confirmation that it'll take a couple of weeks really to play out to confirm. It'll come below the trend line, it'll bounce back up probably to the fib level / the trend line or close to it, and then roll over, and that'll be your signal that you've reached exhaustion for that move.
So I was going to say, even as a long-term investor, there's a point here when your position has grown so much, whether you're in ETH or in Bitcoin or whatever, and it's kept on pumping up, there is a point of starting to just be a little more defensive with your profit, which can mean that you're not actively trading in, like we talk about on 8 hours and 2 hours, but there is some logic in having some of these levels where you're just starting to take some profit out of your position, because if it pulls back exactly as you expect, you simply buy it back. There's no risk particularly there if you still think the bull market's intact and it's following your pattern. So that's exactly what I'm looking at right now. I'm sort of regretting not perhaps understanding this a little more earlier, but it's always easy in hindsight. We were not calling a Wyckoff crash or whatever you want to call it in May, and there it was. And so it's just now what happens next. We've talked a lot about this. This is what I'm looking at where can I, to use your American term, play defense to kill this game now. And so this to me is just one model, but I like the fact there's no time in here to start stressing. Obviously, we've got time along the bottom, but don't stress about when we hit this line, because nobody knows. We talked about it a lot last time, Brandon. So nobody knows.
This is really good insight. Just having these fib extension levels work fantastic. I mean, it's what I use in price discovery when I'm trading smaller cap stuff on a shorter time frame. And there's no reason that it won't be just as valid on a longer time frame on a larger asset. And it's probably the best single tool we have. Just looking at our last.
They're like a round number, aren't they? In some ways, I mean, it seems to work and it seems to react off it. It's like when you get to 200,000, it will probably pose some resistance. It's a round number.
Who knows if it's more of a self-fulfilling prophecy and that just enough people use it. But fib levels are rooted in nature, right? And it's just kind of all the levels that we use, the numbers that we use are just based on the natural phenomenon. And you know, it may very well be tied to psychology, but it's, you know, a lot of people use them, so you know, but they just work. I mean, that's the things that fib levels just tend to work for whatever reason. So
So
yeah, it's one of our better tools for sure.
that's sort of hopefully useful for people just on what we're looking at even longer term, you know, without all the the chopping around and stopping everyone out and creating all the stress as to how to perhaps de-stress things a bit. And then have a quick look at where Ethereum's got to, because obviously we've had another couple of weeks of this sort of insane burning. Excuse things falling around here in the frame in the background. Be like one of these TV shows where the set fell apart whilst they were talking. So we've obviously got above a million ETH, and all time, and obviously we started fairly slowly with the burn. It was 62% offset, so we're only at 38% issuance now compared to before 1559. So that has to have an impact. If you go to 30 days, we're actually at 80% offset. So that's significant. And in the 30 days, we're seeing Uniswap at the top, which I'm also interested in. It's not all people speculating on NFTs, burning all this ETH. We're seeing, you know, trading of tokens back at the top. So that's, you know, to me is still really bullish. Again, we just simulate the merge at these levels last 30 days, we'd be at minus 3.3% supply growth, which supports everything we talked about earlier in the bull case. You know, there's not much update on the merge the last couple of weeks. I've seen more testing going on. There was an appeal on Twitter for people to help with the testing process. I think there's been some doubt in the Bitcoin maxi world that, oh, ETH isn't ready, la, la, la. From what I can see, obviously I'm a CTO, developer, etc., professional career. That's looking strong, that project. You know, the right sort of testing has been taking place. There's merging being done repetitively to check it's working. Obviously the sort of consensus layer has been up for a year now. That anniversary's just ticked round. That's been very successful with the beacon chain. So it's not like it's a new project. It went live and everything's live. What we're talking about is bringing the execution layer in now alongside the consensus layer. So, you know, and that's heavily in testing. Again, with all these major projects on board to test it, I would be very surprised if that doesn't work. And I'm not afraid if it goes backwards more. I've been there in projects, because the worst thing you can do, and I've been there up against CEOs who are obsessed with trying to get projects live, is to try and ram it live when it's not tested properly. You know, if there was ever an IT disaster waiting to happen, it's trying to go live when you haven't done any proper testing. So, you know, I see all the right signs for the merge, and that again just keeps me happy with this trade at the moment with Ethereum. So, you know, we look at this fee chart. Where are we? 7 days, 55 million, 730 Bitcoin, ratios holding up. You know, and here Uniswap, you know, BSC, ETH fork, and then we've got apps that run on Ethereum generating real revenue. And then we've got Avalanche, which has been pretty comical because it's, lo and behold, when the blocks start getting full up, the fees start going up, and we're just seeing the same story. You know, blockchains need a fee mechanism of some sort when the block space is all full, otherwise it breaks, and we're seeing fees rising. So yeah, we're seeing roll-ups on this list from here, you know, spending ETH, posting data. So that's good. TVL on layer 2 is just up, and that still looks really bullish. Layer 2 fees, for those who haven't tried layer 2, well, transferring ETH, obviously main chain 8, V8 or 20 or somewhere in that area, depending on exactly when you do your transfer. But we're down on the optimized like Hermes and Loopring, ZK Sync, we're down in nominal figures. I mean, nobody's complaining really about those sort of fees unless, if you've got a tiny balance, just leave it on a centralized exchange. Don't go trying to run DeFi with $100 of something. If you're here, these are good levels, and there is, and I think one of the bits of news I picked out because I think is important, as Vitalik's been tweeting about, which is a new EIP that sat there for Ethereum that could be implemented very quickly, is to reduce the call data gas cost, which will reduce these gas costs for these rollups by a factor. They'll be down to a fifth of where they are now. So this again is quite a big statement from the core devs and Vitalik about how important they see this layer 2 process and to get these fees down even further. So that was sort of one of the bigger pieces of news of the week that I highlighted. So all to me still keeps my faith and trust in the trade I'm in. There's other things here like about roll-ups. We can probably discuss this another time because we'll go on too long, but just to understand better the different types of roll-ups that we have, the data being on or off chain, the different types of proofs, etc. But at a very, very simple high level for 1 minute, we are basically batching transactions and then put in the proof of those back on the layer 1. So it's like committing 1,000 transactions for the price of one transaction on the layer 1. With ZK rollup, which is what I particularly like, you've got everything on chain so that you can prove the balance of something, etc. You can still even interact via a smart contract with the ZK rollup, even if the transaction sequencer and the rollup is offline. So you get your funds out, etc. from layer 1. That's the solution I prefer. And I think over time, we're going to see that dominate. However, the developers are very clear. Aspects of getting full execution layer onto ZK rollup in an optimized form is sort of, some of it, I think, is sort of PhD level mathematics stuff. It's complicated. So that work continues. Lots of people work on that, and progress is positive, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So what we have is, let's say, compromises, but there are different flavors of roll up just to enable things today. And you've got things like Matic, Polygon in the background running a side chain, which again just delivers a similar thing with slightly less security ultimately. So on the subject of roll-ups quickly, and I make this point on Twitter, I'll make it again here for people. This is from Bankless, but it's a guide to airdrops. So I'm just going to make this point to people again. Airdrops in the Ethereum world can be incredibly valuable. I received the airdrop for ENS for the name service, having registered some ENS domains. That was a 5-figure US dollars airdrop. So it's free money when they give it to you. Some people got a 6-figure US dollar airdrop because of their use of ENS. This from Bankless this is a premium thing. They give you the first 5 and there's another 25 in here. But one of the ones you can see is Hop Protocol. This is just a recommendation to people is get, if you understand self-custody and you've got Ethereum in self-custody, use some of the things that Bankless have published. And Hop is one that can basically, I've used it. You can get, say, ETH across from mainnet to quickly to the layer 2s like Optimism, Arbiter, and Polygon, etc. There's potential for not only airdrops from the layer 2s themselves if they issue tokens, but also from Hop, which is likely to issue an airdrop. And there's other things you can then do, like you simply have to use some of the DeFi applications. So earlier in the year, I got a similar, significant airdrop from Holding Ampleforth. Now, Holding Ampleforth, it's been a stable coin that's not all that stable. It was a pretty terrible trade until they airdropped me something worth far more than my Ampleforth ever was. So this is a strategy for almost like trading within the Ethereum ecosystem in particular, having to do very little other than perhaps shift some funds onto a layer 2, stick a bit of funds into a liquidity pool and do nothing, and you can take it out again later. This kind of thing, very simple.
It's a form of farming, which is becoming more and more important to understand and to take advantage of in crypto. Because here's the other thing: is if you're not taking advantage of these airdrops and farming and different things, what's happening is everybody. So when you think about all of crypto, as it really has a finite market cap, right? Because the market's only going to support so much speculation around that space, and it's exponential growth, so it'll continue to grow very rapidly. But at any moment in time, the market cap of all of crypto is what the market of all of crypto is. And if you're not, if you're not staking your coins, or you're not taking advantage of using platforms that are doing airdrops and taking advantage of all those things, or yield farming, whatever it is, what's happening is you're getting diluted whether you want to or not. And it's like, it's like if you were holding a stock and they were constantly doing equities raises and diluting the stock by giving out, bonuses or whatever it is, right? Or equity raises in general. There's just more stock. If you're statically holding a stock that's constantly doing that, while the stock may be going up and you're still appreciating versus fiat, you're losing your share of the pie, of how much pie that is. And so when you think about airdrops, yield farming, and staking, all of that are mechanisms that the community at large is getting paid back in different ways. But what it's doing is it's diluting the entire pool. So the only way, like, if you take advantage of all these things, what's happening is you're growing a larger portion of that whole crypto pie. And if you're not taking advantage of it, you may be holding something that's going up in value, or at some point it's going to be going down in value, and you're also losing your percentage of ownership of whatever it is that you bought. So
that's a good point. Great point. Yeah. So very quickly on HOP, just so people understand that again, you need to understand use of self-custody. When you send things from mainnet to Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, you still use your same ETH wallet address, but you switch your network. So within MetaMask, you can select which network you have, and if you go to the Optimism and Arbitrum website, you can add those networks to MetaMask, and then you simply switch the network in MetaMask. It then switches automatically in, say, Uniswap. So up in the top right here, it says Ethereum. If I connected this MetaMask to it and I selected it and changed the network to Arbitrum, this changes to Arbitrum, and then I can use Uniswap on Arbitrum. It's that straightforward. Then when I make the transaction, it's making it on the Arbitrum network. I still confirm it with my hardware wallet, exactly the same as I did before. Nothing else changes. But I know I'm on Arbitrum. So, MetaMask then just works with Arbitrum. So it's just pointing at a different endpoint underneath for that network. So obviously with loopring, it's rather easier because you stay on mainnet because it's a full ZK rollup. You don't have to switch over. But for these, you effectively are sending your ETH from mainnet. So it's the same wallet, but it appears then in the Arbitrum network. If I send it there, I sent 1 ETH across. And then when I go to Uniswap and I switch the network there, I would see my 1 ETH of balance, and I could swap it, say, for USDC, but obviously at the much lower fee of the rollup. So Uniswap's deployed on Arbitrum, deployed on Optimism. What you have to be careful of with any of the DeFi apps, Uniswap's no exception, even though it's got very high volume, is just check the slippage when you are doing swaps. There is no point avoiding the gas fee on Ethereum layer 1 if you get a big price impact, a big load of slippage on your trade. Because if you are taking 10 ETH or something out and you've got a nice lot of US dollars there, that slippage can be way higher than the gas fee on layer 1. So it's just a tip. Be very careful when you're using swaps. You're not using limit orders, you're just swapping, which is very popular now. I do it, but I've done it on layer 2 for trading. You just go in, boom, let's just swap that, because I don't care within maybe $50 or something what the price is. It's the trade around that particular point on a long-term time frame. Just be careful with the slippage, because you can save $150 on the fee and think you're clever, and then the slippages cost you $600 on your big trade. So, one final piece of news: Rocket Pool is for those who are interested in ETH2. Obviously, to now you've had to have 32 ETH, run a validator, all that good stuff, or stick it on Kraken or something to stake, get a reward. rocket pool changes that dynamic so that you can work with 16 ETH and, you know, run a rocket pool node, etc. So if you're interested in staking and interested in running your own things, worth having a little read. I'd say it's still fairly new, so probably don't stick your whole ETH bag in there, and understand you get ETH2 back as a reward with these things when you're dealing with the beacon chain. And you don't know when you're going to be able to get your ETH2 back out currently, because that's not when the merge goes through, it doesn't unlock all the ETH2 on the same day. That is to follow. You know, again, the Bitcoin maxis like to tell you it's all going to dump on the day of the merge because everyone's ETH2 gets unlocked. That's not what's going to happen. At the moment, it's unclear exactly when you'll have access to your ETH2. So, so it's just worth considering. Obviously, there are many other ways to, you know, many other DeFi projects you can effectively stake your ETH with and get a return. So do your own research. But it's a piece of news from this week because it's been talked about a lot in the Ethereum chatter, and now it's live. So,
well, that's cool. I hadn't missed that piece of news, so thanks for that update as well.
So there we are. So I've got you right in front of my. Let me move my. So we've got a little bit of green on Ethereum today, but it's just sideways chop really at the moment.
Yeah, Bitcoin's trying to kind of break. It's just going sideways. putting in some support, maybe confirming some support is all we're doing right now. Hopefully. I did have a quick question on the live stream here about any thoughts on equities, and if the question is do I think stonks are rolling over or are they going up? Currently, what I see is we've got it's coming into that swing high that we had early September. And then we had that big sell-off from September to early October. So the whole month of September, we had the big equity sell-off. That swing high from September is what we're coming into now. And yeah, same channel I do basically. We're at the midpoint of the channel that I see that the equities are in, and we're coming into that swing high support from the
I tidied this up a little bit since we last looked at it. Just went back and had a little look at what I saw with the channel and the pattern, and yeah, and obviously we had the virus wick sort of crazy drop and rebound here, but we've just staying in this channel here on the Nasdaq and coming back into support. Similar, we have tested the support on the S&P 500 there. So
exactly, yep. That's what I see.
Tidy weekly test. So
if we lose that, you know, then you're looking at there's a channel that we're kind of in that you can draw that we're at coming to the midpoint. If we're to lose that swing high support, then we'll probably just come back to the bottom of the channel as the next place and look for horizontal levels that correspond to the bottom of that channel. Yeah. I'm guessing around on the S&P that should be. Yeah, I mean,
Nasdaq you've got here is a nice level you could put in here, which is just about somewhere here on the channel, and you'll get a corresponding one. I haven't got the channel on the other chart, but
my kind of thinking is that given the environment that we're in and the fact that, you know, they're probably going to have to keep up QE quite a bit here with any sort of like Omicron negative news. We'll see what happens with all that. But my thinking is it's more likely that we find some consolidation and break to the upside of this channel before we have a significant correction. Just because it keeps reacting so strongly. But of course, it could lose this channel and we get a correction back down. Like you have a good trend line there that's the top trend line. We could find that trend line there that cuts across the top from early 2020.
There's loads of places we could come right back down. It just depends. We've said, I mean, it's chopping around. We've got uncertainty and markets hate uncertainty. That's really what we've got right now, because we've had all this news, hyperbolic news going on that the world's going to collapse and everything's a disaster. But we obviously there's no real confirmation of virus strains and all the rest of it at the moment. Just a lot of news channels filling up their 24 hours. I think uncertainty could bring us back a little bit further, but goodness me, I mean, yeah, we're up a fair bit there, so not bit of room to play with on equities before it's any sort of problem. And it'll be an opportunity if you're looking to get into equities. If it comes back, it'll be perhaps a gift if the money printer stays on.
Right.
So,
That's the big
yeah.
that's the big elephant in the room. All right, Alan. Well, we've been going a little over an hour, I think. So probably about time we put our wrapping thoughts up here. Any so that was one question I have that I thought we should field, and then so that's
Yeah.
all. That's all I have for questions.
Okay, cool. So I'll just having a quick look at the Tesla chart and said it just looks like we're going to start forming another triangle. It just is this pattern of triangles and more triangles here. If this pulls back, I didn't get back into what I sold up here. My long-term position, just looking, being a bit greedier, thinking it'll come back a bit more, but we'll see. Elon's been selling his 10%, so numbers look amazing behind here. Some of the delivery numbers, progress in Texas, Brandon. The factory looks impressive there.
It does.
So,
I'll be driving by
well.
it next week. I'm gonna drive right by it.
Yeah.
Headed somewhere.
Say it's absolutely enormous. It's probably like a Chinese steel factory type scale. You just keep going past it. Think, goodness me, what is going on?
Yeah,
So,
something else.
So again, long-term investment for people. Get a nice pullback on Tesla. Just again, looks like a good long-term play. You'll do very well. Not financial advice, blah blah. So yeah, so that's where we are. We're chopping around, Brandon, on Bitcoin. We haven't broken the market yet, so looks like we're going to put another yet another nothing candle in here on the short-term chart. So
yeah, probably. Hey, so another question here. They were asking Alan, do you hold any layer twos? I think you hold loop ring still, right?
I've traded out most of my loop ring on the pump back for Ethereum. My plan has always been with these trades is to get back to Ethereum when the chart looks nice versus Ethereum. So I'm pretty much out of loop ring. As I said, I've been making sure I'm using Optimism, Arbitrum, etc. before they've issued tokens. So if they do, you'll be eligible for airdrop plan. Hop as well. I think there's Seller Network. There's a load of them that are all in that space. So I think right now that's what I would be focusing on, is using them if you're into that self custody.
So I have a little bit of Matic, in a Matic trade currently too, and I hold just a tiny fraction of our loop ring that Alan and I both had from a long time ago. But that's where I'm at. I never took profit on real time. Yeah,
Matic moving around. But yeah, I mean, we pushed up against this resistance. So again, that is relatively short term, but that's pretty tidy price action there. So
yeah, that's let's say that's my we had a little bit. I had a little bit of Matic from early this year that I still have in a hodl bag that I bought in January, but we both went bigger in loop ring in the springtime, and then I had to exit my loop ring whenever the market started to turn over, and I got about 90% out of it. So for me, my current major positions really are, I don't really have a huge position in Matic or loop ring, but I do have an active trade on Matic. That's where I'm at right now.
Nice weekly. If you go back and look at the weekly high,
yeah,
you were looking at that. Obviously, took it out, rejected, and then
we're currently into resistance on Matic. But so I did take 10%, move my stop loss to break even on Matic myself. But we'll watch it. If we get price continuation, if we find a floor here on Bitcoin, then Ethereum is probably going to do well, and Matic's going to do really well. So we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, it looks nice. That looks lovely on a weekly chart. I mean, that there's a daily resistance I put on earlier, but yeah, that very tidy. So,
cool. Well, anything else? I think I will. I'll just save. I have some thoughts. Well, don't mean to play that. For next week, we'll talk about some of these indicators here. I've got basically, long story short, to kind of wrap this session up on the market top signals. Currently the 200-week moving average is actually printing that we're cooled off, and it's almost reaccumulation, right? So it's printing what I would say is like a good time to DCA in. Pi cycle is kind of totally reset, nowhere near the top, and we're actually coming into kind of the 111 moving average support area. Stock to flow model and variance, we're still on the green side, which would be, if you're a proponent of the stock to flow model, you're still in the accumulation side of that model. And then your 2-year MA multiplier, we're right in the midpoint, which is in an uptrend, again, you continue DCA here. So basically all of the top indicators right now indicate this is a good time to dollar cost average. If you're very long term with Bitcoin, this is a good time to DCA in a little bit more. And this is not, you might have some more downside here, but the downside is pretty limited at this point. There's just so many market factors that are going to put a floor here. It could sell off, right? I mean, I think the worst case scenario right now is that we do lose the 120-day moving average at 52,000. If we do lose that, it's probably a slow grind down to the 40s, mid 40s, and then it'll find a new floor there, and then probably
got a monthly order block, I think at 47 or something. I've stopped screen sharing, but it looked like it might be a floor if we came back down there. So,
yeah,
especially having rejected off the monthly above, but that, yeah.
I'm looking at my charts on the other screen. Yeah, we'll just know that, at this point in time, there's no cause for panic. It's just boring. That's the only thing, is that it's boring, and it's causing people with really big price targets this month a lot of anxiety. But for the rest of us, it's just normal consolidation. It's actually healthy, building basically building support here where we used to have resistance is what we're doing. So all in all, not too concerning. Any sort of downside, any sort of sell-off will probably be short-lived, but we'll keep a close eye on it. But anyway, that's my thoughts for today. Anything else, Alan, to conclude?
No, I think we're good. I'm hoping people found it useful, and thanks again for having me on your channel. So.
Well, thanks again for joining. Somebody else asked a long time ago if you have your own channel, and I told them not yet. Maybe someday Alan will have his own channel, but for now he's a weekly guest here, and he's welcome to continue this if he doesn't want his own channel. But thank you, Alan, for your time. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining, and we'll give it a wrap here.